In 1947, there was a knock at the door here at 827 East Georgia Street. The resident, Nora Hendrix, was looking after her grandson for the evening. His name, if you're wondering, was James, although before that, it was Johnny. Nora would answer the door to a sociology student from the University of British Columbia. This was the doomsday clock for Hogan's Alley.
Hi, I'm R.C. Weslowski, and it is so good to be here with you, basting in Buddha's belly juices, a third nipple pimple no longer, spinning muse tricks and soul licks as quick as Jimi Hendrix, pounding rocks in stone-free flow into the afterglow of the sweet bliss of an aurora borealis star kiss, so in love with this moment, we don't have to say, "Excuse me," when we kiss the sky. Yeah, it is so good to be here with you. Hi, my name is R.C. Weslowski. I live here at 827 East Georgia Street.
So you live in a very important place, a very historical place.
I work in partly work and perform and play in the spoken word community in Vancouver. One of the beautiful things about that is it's populated with lots of people of color. So you get to learn through them, from their generosity in providing information about the historical significance of this house, of the neighborhood, and of Nora Hendrix as a community leader, as a community founder of hosting people in this house, you know, touring musicians who weren't allowed to stay at the hotels and ballrooms that they were performing in. And so they had to come and stay in Hogan's Alley. And they stayed at this house, at Vai's Chicken Shack, and places like that. And so what I've gotten to learn and what I really appreciate is how important and strong the females, the mothers, the matriarchs, the grandmothers, the aunties have been to the community. And I think Nora Hendrix is another example of that.
3 years after that student visited Nora, a paper was published. It was titled Rebuilding a Neighborhood, Report on a Demonstration Slum-Clearance, an Urban Rehabilitation Project in a Key Central Area in Vancouver. The 76-page report by UBC professor Leonard Marsh detailed a $15 million plan to restructure Hogan's Alley to house 10,000 residents. He argued that these minority families were a liability to the city, costing taxpayers almost $300,000 in health and social services, while contributing half that to the city. Facing a recession from the recent war, politicians were cautiously willing to soften the zoning requirements to pick up the new project. In 1957, another 200 pages would be written by city planners, encouraging even more of the neighborhood to be destroyed. Slowly, and then all at once, the neighborhood became something else. Homes were replaced, and eventually the Georgia and Dunsmuir viaducts were built, erasing a once thriving community in the blink of an eye.
It was pretty much confined for the longest time to that area, the Hogan's Alley area, and then when the city brought in the viaducts, it wiped it out, like as a physical place, because where the Georgia viaducts are, Hogan's Alley housing and all that was through there too. You know, the common thing that my black friends say, or especially people who are moved to Vancouver, people always ask them, why are you going to Vancouver? There's no black people there. You know, there's no, and of course that's not true. And the history, you know, expressly says it's not true. But, you know, that is, I think, a cliche. With the rejuvenation of Hogan's Alley, the actual Hogan's Alley Society getting stronger and stronger and doing promotional things and doing good, ethical, community-based activism has raised the awareness of the history of black people in Vancouver.
After the destruction of Hogan's Alley, Nora would move to Seattle with her son, ultimately returning to Vancouver in the 80s until her death in 1984 at 100 years old. She would outlive her grandson James, who had grown up to be a world-famous guitarist and performer. He went by his stage name, Jimi Hendrix, where he made his mark on the world. Now, after Vancouver has joined the world stage, there are roughly 42,000 black people living in the city, While the razing of Hogan's Alley set us back several years, Nora's home, somehow still standing, has been designated a historical site, and her name lives on in the Black community.